We should start with a tune. What's it? A tune wheel? A tune whistle?
Yeah, pitch pipe.
A pitch pipe. Yeah. I feel like we should start this. We'll be podcasting in the key of G. What's good? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a grown man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid, but I'm reading them now as an adult. I'm on a quest to determine if this is a book series that we've all been sleeping on, and I'm not on this quest alone. I'm joined this time in person by repeat guest, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, one of the few people who I'm not related to that I say I love you on the phone to when I say goodbye. It's Stephen Parra in the studio. Stephen, how's it going?
Oh, I love you too, man.
Love you, bud. This is fun because you were here just doing New York things because you're going to be moving back here soon.
Yes.
And then we had an unfortunate mishap with who was supposed to be the guest remotely, and I turned to you at the kitchen table this morning and said, hey, Stephen, you want to be a guest on the Newest Olympian today?
And I said, great. I closed my copy of The Titan's Curse and had to find my copy of Sea of Monsters to figure out what we're doing.
Thankfully, I had them in the room. But yes, what's also fortuitous about this is that you had said that if you didn't pick the chapters that you had already picked for your earlier appearance on the Sea of Monsters episodes of TNO, you would have picked these. So, look, it's all worked out in a very strange, incidental way.
Exactly. And we're here. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we are here to first continue Chapter 13 and see how much of Chapter 14 we can get into. Chapter 13, as you may recall, is Annabeth tries to swim home, and we haven't seen exactly what that means yet, but we will soon, because where we last left our heroes, they were approaching the island of the Sirens. So a mythology thing that I knew a little bit about. I've seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So I kind of know what's going on there. I will say that first, our past guest, Alyssa Esteban, was very excited to share some stuff about the rest of this chapter, but we didn't get to it because we had too much fun talking about it. But she did send me an email that arrived a couple of hours before recording to make sure that I was done reading the chapters. So she had some notes that she wanted to share that I will share on her behalf as we get to the relevant parts of this chapter. But let's continue. So they are approaching the island. Annabeth asks Percy for a favor because soon they will be in range of the Sirens' song. And narrator Percy recounts how the Sirens sing so sweetly that their voices enchant sailors to lure them to their death. Super fun, super cool, super great. Percy kind of fills in what he thinks Annabeth is asking. He thinks that Annabeth is asking for some sort of help to not hear the song. So Percy says, oh, no worries. There's a tub of candle wax below deck. But Annabeth's favor is that she wants to hear the song. And she wants to because, quote, they say the Sirens sing the truth about what you desire. They tell you things about yourself you didn't even realize. That's what's so enchanting. If you survive, you become wiser. I want to hear them. How often will I get that chance?
Which is a typical Annabeth thing to say, right? Like, you know what? Here's this really dangerous thing, but it'll make me wiser. So let's just do this maybe not advisable thing.
Yes. Narrator Percy even admits, for a normal person, this would seem like a strange request. But because Annabeth is such a freaking nerd, this checks out. Alyssa emailed me about this, saying that in mythology, Odysseus makes the same request that Annabeth did to hear the song and survive. Supposedly, Odysseus was also the cause of the Sirens' demise. They were fated to die if anyone survived their song, and then the Sirens, at least in the tale of Odysseus, drowned themselves. Alyssa continues, I couldn't find any details about the content of the Siren song on a cursory search, just that the singing and the music itself was alluring. Alyssa continues to say that she would be curious to know if the content of the song has precedent in mythology, or if Rick embellished the mythology for a more explicit point of character building. And for that, I say, Uncle Rick, come on the pod. I will add this to the questions that I will ask Rick when he inevitably, now I'm just speaking it into existence, inevitably comes on the pod. We'll add this to the pile.
Yeah, and we'll give you a hug. I don't know if I'll be here, but, you know.
I will respectfully ask if you would like a hug.
Sorry, yeah. If you'd like a hug, I would like to give Uncle Rick a hug. I don't know.
Man, especially given the week that he's been having. We're recording this on May 10th, which is the day in which Rick posted the, hey, stop being racist towards the person we've cast as Annabeth, please, blog post.
Yeah.
Not a fun week for anyone involved in that, but Yeah, Rick is handling it super well. If you've not read that blog post, I will link it in the episode description. Powerful stuff. Uncle Rick perfectly shutting down a bunch of racist jerks.
Yeah, I have nothing to add.
So Percy reluctantly agrees to follow her plan, which involves tying her to the foremast and not untying her no matter how much she pleads. Annabeth says, quote, "I'll want to go straight over the edge and drown myself." And Percy says, "Are you trying to tempt me?" And Annabeth goes, "Ha ha," with a hyphen in between, that hyphen doing a lot of work. But the flirting here, I love it. It's so apparent. They love each other.
Michael, they're 13.
I know, but they love each other. Look, I was convinced that I loved people when I was 13 because they held my hand and went to the movies with me. So Percy promises to keep her secure and makes candle wax earplugs for himself. Annabeth makes fun of how they look, and Percy makes a face at her and then retakes the wheel of the ship. Wonderful. Great. No notes. They get closer to the island, and Annabeth wants to break free, and it really pains Percy to see this, so he turns away. And Percy notes that there's loads of wreckage near the island, and it makes him wonder what the song is about. He's tempted to take out his earplugs, but he knows that he can't, and that it would be a terrible decision. Annabeth is really hitting Percy hard with these looks of despair, and it makes Percy just angry at the island that they've been put in this situation. Narrator Percy says, quote, "I wanted to uncap my sword, but there was nothing to fight. How do you fight a song?" Which is a great question.
There's a simple answer to that.
Is it make a bad acoustic remix of it?
Ooh, that's a good way to fight a song. It makes me really sad because I know my singing voice is just built to sing worse covers of better songs in a coffee shop.
Look, you had a great a cappella career in college,
Hey,
Stephen.
I was tailor-made for a cappella. Let me sing something awesome, but worse.
Is that what you would say is to fight the song, or did you have a different answer?
I posit two things. The first one is very simple. You just go up to your friend and go, na 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 na. That's a great way. My second idea is just start singing Baby Shark.
Oh, no.
Over and over again.
We're not even going to do it because it's going to get stuck in my head, and that would be a disservice to everyone. But
you know it's true.
It is true. Gosh. Yep. Let's move on. Now, Percy forces himself not to look at Annabeth for 5 minutes. Unfortunately, this was the worst time he could have done that, because when he finally turns back to look at her, much like Orpheus in the tale of Orpheus and Eurydice, yes, I did see Hadestown this past weekend, he looks back and, he just sees cut ropes, because Percy, like a fool, forgot to disarm her, and her trademark bronze knife. Yeah. Come on. Oh, what a goober. And now I realized, oh no, the aforementioned swimming home from the chapter title. Here it is. So he sees Annabeth in the water swimming towards the island, and he tells the boat, stay, and then jumps overboard.
I know. I love that Percy's powers include just making boats into dogs.
Yes, that's what I thought. He's turned this boat into a dog. It's fantastic. So he jumps overboard, he goes in and he starts swimming, and he uses his water powers in the coolest ways possible. So many cool descriptions, but my favorite was, quote, "I sliced into the water and willed the currents to bend around me, making a jet stream that shot me forward." And I couldn't help but think of the turtles in Finding Nemo.
Oh,
just making some sort of big current tunnel that just shoots him towards her. Super great stuff.
I know. And what I love about this segment is it's just showing how much growth Percy's had in terms of his powers. He's become a lot more comfortable with being the son of the sea god, and he's acting with a lot more intuition and just doing awesome stuff.
Right. And whether he is so comfortable with his powers that he knows what he's doing before he jumps in, or he jumps in and is just a master improviser and goes, I'll figure it out once I hit the water. I don't know. But regardless, you're right. He's got more confidence in his ability. In the past, it was, I hope I can do this. Can I do this? What can I do? What are my limitations? At this point, he's in the water. He's putting stuff together and figuring it out. We'll see a little bit later that it's him kind of learning on the spot and kind of making decisions as he goes for some elements. But you're right. He's super confident. He's ready to use his powers. It's awesome. Now, the danger around the island mainly comes from razor-sharp rocks, but Percy also swims through boat wreckage and mines and barbed wire. And he finally gets to where Annabeth is. She is almost approaching the black beach of the island.
The barbed wire still really confuses me.
Right.
I understand mines. I understand shipwreck. Why is there barbed wire?
I don't know. I really don't, unless the sirens hope someone gets trapped in it and they've intentionally put it there, because some of the other things feel like it could have been using parts of boats and stuff, but I don't know a boat that's traveling with barbed wire.
Hey, boat aficionados, If you know what
Stephen Parra.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would assume that some sort of wreckage had it and they put it there because if someone can get trapped in the barbed wire, that is just one easier way to get what they are truly after, which we will learn in a little bit.
For sure.
So the mist clears and Percy finally sees the sirens. We get this description, which is terrifying. Quote, imagine a flock of vultures the size of people with dirty black plumage, gray talons, and wrinkled pink necks. Now imagine human heads on top of those necks, but the human heads keep changing. Great. Nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick. Percy can't hear them because of the earwax, but he can tell that they are singing and their faces are changing into people that he knows. Sally, who he calls Mom, Poseidon, who he doesn't call Dad.
Oh.
He just calls him Poseidon, which I thought was very interesting and felt intentional. But Poseidon has not reached dad status. He's more of, I'm going to call my stepdad by his first name status kind of thing, which is really interesting. I wonder if it'll ever get to a point where he gets closer with Poseidon and calls him dad, but I just picked up on Sally was called Mom, Poseidon was not. Percy continues, Grover, Tyson, and Chiron. The faces give welcoming smiles, but the mouths are caked with remnants of old meals, quote, and it didn't look like they'd been feasting on monster donuts. Such a dad way to write that, but it's a very fun way for Uncle Rick to go, how do I write that they're eating people without writing they're eating people in this children's book?
Like, for sure. And of course, now that we know monster donuts, easy callback.
It's a fun callback. Percy knows that he's got to get Annabeth before she leaves the water because the water is his biggest advantage against the sirens. Mm-hmm. So he propels forward and grabs Annabeth's ankle. But when he does, he can see the sirens in a way that Annabeth is seeing them, and he can see the vision that Annabeth is seeing that comes along with hearing the song. Mm-hmm. He describes it as such. 3 people sat on a picnic blanket in Central Park. A feast was spread out before them. I recognized Annabeth's dad from photos she'd shown me, an athletic-looking, sandy-haired guy in his 40s. He was holding hands with a beautiful woman who looked a lot like Annabeth. She was dressed casually, in blue jeans and a denim shirt and hiking boots. Not what I was picturing for Athena at all. But something about the woman radiated power. I knew that I was looking at the goddess Athena. Next to them sat a young man, Luke. And at first I went, no! But the description continues. Luke is described in more of a friendly way, not a romantic interest way. So my Persebeth dreams are still intact.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you felt about that, what you read into Luke being present in this scenario.
At first I was worried because I thought this would crush Percy to see, oh no, she still has feelings for Luke. But instead, what Percy goes on to clarify is that it's everything she's ever wanted, because Percy lets us know that the Manhattan in the background is not regular Manhattan. It is mega ultimate Olympus Manhattan, where all the buildings are made out of marble and they have golden windows. And Percy realizes, oh, this is as if Annabeth designed Manhattan. And now that cues him to realize, oh, this is just all the things that she's ever wanted. She wants to reunite her parents. She wants to design buildings in her image, and she wants to save Luke. So that is how he pieces together what the sirens make her see. And that made me feel better about the whole Luke situation of it all, because instead of any sort of romantic stuff, it's just Luke is one of my best friends. I can't believe he's gone down this dark path. I want to save him. Now, Percy, to get this to stop, blinks really hard and he snaps back to reality. But oh, there goes gravity, because Annabeth is kicking Percy in the face as he tries to bring her back into the water.
Yeah, but so what I really love about that is just Annabeth is still Annabeth, even when she's under this trance. You know, you sit there, you try to stand in her way. She's going to go for the face and she's not going to hesitate.
Not at all. So Percy struggles with her, but is able to get her in the water, and then he powers the current to get back to the ship. But she's still fighting pretty hard, and he realizes, I'm not going to be able to get her back to the boat unless I find a way for her to not hear the song. So he has a light bulb moment. The water. Sound doesn't travel super well underwater. If I can submerge Annabeth deep enough, then it'll break the spell of the music. But then Percy does note, now Annabeth won't be able to breathe underwater. So I have to be aware, but narrator Percy says, quote, but at the moment, that seemed like a minor problem. So beautifully dismissive. So he orders the waves to push them down, and he's aware that they can't go too deep because he can withstand much more water pressure than she can. And he sees her struggling, and he's worried about her needing air. But in her struggles, he sees bubbles come out of her mouth, and he realizes, a bubble. So he makes a giant bubble around them to where everything except for their legs is encapsulated in a bubble. pretty romantic, I must say. And then she gasps, she coughs, and then she wakes back up and the spell has been broken. And she starts sobbing and really sobbing. She puts her head on Percy's shoulder and he holds her. Now, I know this is very sad, but also, yes, consoling.
I love it because it's like the way I engage, I just feel so sad for Annabeth in this moment, but you're just like, oh man, she put her head
I'm just invested in the romantics. I'm a horrible garbage person that couldn't care less. I know everything's going to be okay. I'm just invested in them getting together. Now, fish gather around, and Percy tells them to scram, which is such an old New York guy vibe. Scram! Which is beautiful. I love it. And Percy can sense that what they wanted to do was spread rumors about how the son of Poseidon is with some girl underwater.
Under the sea.
Fish gossip? Okay, sure.
Dude, I'm here for fish gossip.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's the hot fish gossip right now?
Probably, in the saddest version, that fish real estate is going up because sea levels are rising.
And the coral's dying out.
Yeah, coral's dying out,
no.
but at least real estate prices are going down because there's more water to go around. Are there less cruises going on? I would hope there's less cruises. Maybe they're happy with that there's not as many big old boats and tourists scuba diving and stuff going around.
Yeah, but they're pretty bummed out that there's less sunglasses to go around for all the fish.
Everyone dropping cool neato gadgets and stuff in the water. Yeah. Pros and cons.
Oh, well.
Percy assures Annabeth that he will get them back to the ship, and she says something that he can't hear. Gotta ask Rick what this is, because clearly this is one of those really important things. She said, I love you, Percy Jackson, marry me, but he couldn't hear. Now, they get to the boat, and they start to sail away. Percy keeps his ears plugged until Annabeth gives him a signal that they're okay, just to be safe. She eventually mouths safe to him, and he removes his very stylish wax earbuds. So Percy then asks Annabeth if she's okay, and then as the narrator, he realizes, the moment I said this, I regretted it because, of course, she's not okay. Why would I ask her this? Annabeth murmurs, I didn't realize, and Percy goes, what? And narrator Percy says, her eyes were the same color as the mist over the Sirens' Island, and Annabeth continues how powerful the temptation would be. I mean, it's sad. It's serious stuff. And it would especially suck to be in this predicament, but specifically to see the perfect, ideal, everything you've ever wanted moment and to know it's only a dream and then to realize that it's probably not feasible is super crushing.
Yeah, and like not only that, it's like you got to experience it and then it was taken away from you, violently even. You know?
By people who just wanted to eat you.
Yeah.
It's rough stuff for sure.
And I think, Annabeth will explain more about what she's seeing, but this chapter to me is very tragic.
Yeah.
In its own sense, and I think it's just a testament to Rick's writing that he was able to handle it with such a deft hand that it's, I didn't finish it feeling completely terrible about life or anything like that, but I thought it did a great job for growing Annabeth and Percy's relationship and us getting to know Annabeth a little more. But I just appreciate that Rick didn't shy away from these things. A lot of these demigods go through some significant trauma to get to where they are in this story. And it's just kind of nice that Rick is sort of validating those experiences, I guess.
Yeah. It's really nice that he doesn't shy away from the serious things. And the serious things that happen are things that could happen in a kid's day-to-day life. It's not like another YA series like The Hunger Games, where all of the bad things happening are externally forced upon them. And it's all a result of this dystopian world that they live in. And what's nice is, as you said, this not only teaches us a lot about Annabeth and we get to know her as a character, but it also really starts to build on the foundation of Annabeth and Percy's friendship. And we see this in other YA series. Hunger Games, Peeta and Katniss become closer after going through the games. We see this in Harry Potter, where after the trio go through the end of book 1, they've become a lot closer, troll in the bathroom, that kind of stuff. But those things are external forces. We've got Annabeth and Percy. Yes, they've got external things going on, but less so those things like escaping from monsters. Those don't bring them together as much as these kind of things do, where they really get to know each other as people, their desires, their fears, their hopes, their dreams, all of that stuff. And I think it's just so much more powerful that is what's bringing them closer, is a true and deeper understanding of each other and themselves as people. And that's so much more impactful because I think it makes for a better story. It makes for a more believable story, and it's something that you can adapt into a real life situation, as opposed to, I don't know, if you're a kid, you're going to be like, okay, well, if a giant evil being attacks us and we find a way to get out of it, or if we're in some death game and we find a way out of it, this is so much nicer and so much more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
So Percy doesn't want to admit to Annabeth that he saw what she saw because he feels like he was trespassing in her vision, but he thinks that keeping it from her is even worse, so he feels like he owes it to let her know the truth. So he lets her know, and Annabeth is a little embarrassed. And then Percy asks, is what Luke said to you, is that really getting to you? When he said, what if we could start the world from scratch? What if we could do it all over? Couldn't we do it better? And Annabeth says, yes, because her fatal flaw is what the sirens showed her, hubris. And making sure that we don't have this book be serious for too long, shout out to Uncle Rick, Percy goes, that brown stuff that they spread on veggie sandwiches?
And how dare he?
I think this is a time, I feel like hummus was really not on the map. Like, it was definitely a part of Greek food and Mediterranean cuisine, but I don't think it was let's have veggies, baby carrots, whatever, and hummus as an appetizer just at the party that we're at. I don't think it was that status yet. I think hummus was more of, it's kind of that weird food, as opposed to like very much ubiquitous appetizer hummus kind of thing.
See, I guess I had a different relationship with hummus growing up personally, just because early on in my life, someone was, hummus is just beans, man. And I was like, oh. And then I ate a lot more hummus.
I'm Mexican. I love beans. You had me at beans.
Yeah. You got it, man.
But maybe it's very 2006. I didn't have my finger on the pulse of cuisine because I was 14. I was in 8th grade. I was not worried about what can I bring to the party.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, literally my entire thought process was, there's beans in this. I want it now.
Yeah, I think my only experience with that was, when I get Greek food, there's some gloopy stuff that you put on the pita bread that isn't the tzatziki sauce. I like this. But Annabeth rolls her eyes and goes, no, seaweed brain, that's hummus. Hubris is worse. And I thought this exchange was going to end at that, but it gets better because Percy goes, what could be worse than hummus?
How dare you, Perseus Jackson?
I mean, Greek food is pretty strong in New York, so I don't know how he has avoided hummus, but maybe he just doesn't like it. It is just garbanzo beans, so sure.
But with garlic,
I know.
oil.
I mean, look, you don't have to tell me twice. I love hummus a lot. It became my trademark thing that I would bring when I was in Seattle and I was making a bunch of new friends, going over to people's housewarming parties or movie watching, sports watching, whatever parties, because the first party that I went to was of a YouTube friend of mine, Sophia. She was having a housewarming and I met a bunch of people and then they were watching football the next day and I did not care about football. I don't like football. It's very bad. American football, soccer is great, but football, gross. But I wanted to make friends. So that was a Saturday. They were watching football on a Sunday and then I just brought a big old bag of baby carrots and a thing of hummus, just thinking this would be a nice snack that I would like to eat while watching the game. And when I showed up to the door with these, the people hosting the party were very relieved and they said, oh, thank God, people only brought liquor or donuts. I'm so glad that you brought substantial food. So from that moment on, anytime I went to any party for this group of friends, I would just bring baby carrots and hummus. It became my calling card, so much so that at one point they did a potluck and people did a Google sheet to make sure that people were bringing different things. And when they sent it out, it was already pre-filled with Mike, baby carrots and hummus.
That's amazing.
It was perfect. So, anyway, Percy hates hummus, a flaw of Percy. He usually comes away with W's, but a rare L for Percy.
It's all right. Maybe he'll grow up.
Yes, hopefully he will see the light. Annabeth explains, hubris means deadly pride, Percy, thinking you can do things better than anyone else, even the gods. And this is a nice way for the 10-year-old reader out there to get a fun little vocabulary lesson.
For sure.
So Annabeth starts to talk with Percy about the appeal of starting all over because the West has screwed things up. And if we have a world without terrible things such as war, homelessness, and summer reading homework, the world would be a better place. You're not wrong, but Luke is not going about this in the right way. Annabeth ends this little monologue by asking Percy if he ever thinks that he could run the world better if given the chance. And Percy goes, no. Me running the world would be a nightmare. And we stan a self-aware king in Percy Jackson.
Absolutely.
He knows where his strengths lie. He knows his limitations. We love to see it. Annabeth replies that this proves his fatal flaw is not hubris. And Percy asks, what is my fatal flaw? And Annabeth says, I don't know, but every hero has one, and you better learn what it is and how to control it since it's, fatal. Percy does pick up on the fact, though, that Annabeth didn't talk about any of the personal things that she wanted, whether it's fixing Luke or her parents' relationship, but he doesn't press her on it further because he, too, has dreamed of reuniting his parents, so he can sympathize with what she's going through.
Mm-hmm.
He asks her if it was worth it if she feels wiser, and she's unsure, but she is sure that they must save the camp. She trails off and doesn't finish, but Percy's picking up what she's putting down. If Luke's reasoning can almost convince someone as wise and level-headed as Annabeth, there's no telling how many half-bloods would join Luke's side. And it's just that cursed Luke charisma that we have to be aware of.
And that Harvard frat boy chic, is that what it's called?
At least according to Uncle Rick, prophesizing that frat boys would not change their fashion. Yes. Percy wonders more about what the girl in his dream, Thalia, saw in the coffin herself. But then Annabeth interrupts to get his attention. Narrator Percy says, up ahead was another blotch of land, a saddle-shaped island with forested hills and white beaches and green meadows, just like I'd seen in my dreams. My nautical senses confirmed it, 30 degrees, 31 minutes north, 75 degrees, 12 minutes west. We had reached the
Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
I'm so stoked for the future Philadelphia live show that we just called the Doylestown show. We had reached the home of the Cyclops.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect. A perfect joke. Shout out to me being a goof and typing numbers wrong into my notes. But I just wrote here in my notes, let's go. And that's the end of chapter 13. And that's the end of this part of the episode. Let's take a little break here for the sea of sponsors.
Yeah, and actually, I got a question for you that we can think about while we take this break.
Okay.
What do you think Percy's fatal flaw is?
Let's answer it now so that people don't rapidly skip through the sea of sponsors.
Oh, that's a good point.
I would say that he tries too hard, or he cares too much, or his weakness is that he doesn't have a weakness.
You gave me like 5 answers there, buddy.
I would probably say, I'm not going to say loyalty because he turned on Luke immediately, which I love. I really love. And that's something I share with him. I am very loyal, but the second I learn someone's bad, just, oh, okay, cool. I don't care. Oh, Kevin Spacey's bad? Nah, let me just burn my copy of Baby Driver. But let's see. The only thing I would say, maybe we will learn more, but I could say that it would be some sort of stubbornness, but a specific stubbornness in that the Oracle basically told him, you're not going to be able to save everybody, and he still tried to, or stubbornness with, he did eventually let his mom go, but it was really hard for him. He seems like the kind of guy to take the non-optimal route in order to save a friend along the way. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can gather so far from what I know about Percy, but maybe we'll learn. Do you have a non-spoilery guess or anything to add?
So maybe I could try to distill what you've said and say it back to you.
Sure.
Maybe that sounds the best way to do this.
Classic raise the hand and say, piggybacking off of what he said.
But yeah, it sounds like what you're saying to me is you think that Percy may not always have the best ability to see the forest for the trees.
Ooh, yeah.
That's kind of what you're saying. You know, he knows what's important to him and what he values, and he's going to fight for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that kind of sound like what you're saying?
Yeah.
He may not always capture the bigger picture.
Right. Maybe gets a little tunnel vision on his personal desires, but he did put those aside when push came to shove with Sally, so maybe not. I'm very interested to see. I'm glad that you've asked this because now it will spark a thing to keep in the back of my mind. And now we can get into the sea of sponsors.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Hello and welcome to the Sea of Sponsors. All are welcome, everybody, even pirates, even gentlemen's pirates. Come on aboard. First, I wanted to read the rest of Alyssa's email in regards to chapter 13. Stephen and I just got so engrossed in our conversation that I forgot to refer back to it. So here's what she had to say. Something that Alyssa pointed out is that Annabeth's vision says that it's her doing everything that she ever wanted. And you can compare that to Cersei's remarks in chapter 12, where she says, quote, meanwhile, you will be wise and powerful. You will have all you ever wanted with sorcery. Alyssa goes on to say there's a theme between these two 2 chapters of continually testing Annabeth's temptations of testing her fatal flaw. How much could Circe know? Granted, many of the gods and immortal beings just seem to know whatever's convenient for the plot, and Circe specifically warned Odysseus that he would run into the sirens, which is how he knew to give his crew beeswax. That's how they block their ears. Maybe she knew that Annabeth would do the same. So thanks again, Alyssa, for saying this. Sorry that I forgot to do the second part of the email in the actual recording. Now, Alyssa helped me out here by providing extra information. You know who else is helping me out? All the people supporting at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. And you kind of help yourself too, because you get a bunch of bonus content. One of those things that I don't talk about often enough is that you can get ad-free episodes and early episodes if you support at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. Basically, once I finish the episode, I put it up there. Sometimes that is days in advance. Sometimes that is 2 a.m. Eastern time Monday. So it's not always early, but sometimes it is, and it's always ad-free. But shout out to everyone who's on the team over at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. We're getting close to 1,000 patrons, which means we will almost be doing the Hades stream with me and Steven. But I want to now specifically thank the newest members of our team. So shout out to our newest God tier patron, Kiara Yu, and shout out to our newest demigod tier patrons, Pip Covington and Nori Brain. And finally, a name correction for Hallie Brooks. Thank you all so much for your support. May Aries bless you when you're at the gym for doing just one extra rep. Just one more. You can do it. Speaking of support, I want to thank Multitude for having us as a part of the collective. If you are looking for some new podcasts to listen to, why don't you check out the other shows that are a part of the Multitude collective? I think you would like the new show that just came out this past Friday, Games and Feelings. Games and Feelings is an advice podcast about games. You can join Question Keeper Eric Silver and a revolving cast of guests as they answer your questions at the intersection of fun and humanity since, you know, you gotta play games with other people. And when they say games, they mean every single type, from video games to tabletop games to party games, laser tag, escape rooms, game streams, D&D podcasts, the companies and the workers that make games, anything that you can imagine. Maybe you're trying to convince someone who's only played Monopoly to play the new board game that you grabbed at the game store, or maybe you're trying to determine if an escape room is a good third date. You can submit your question, and when you do, you will get a fun little nickname to go alongside of it. Any question is welcome as long as it is about games. So if you want to level up your emotional intelligence stat, subscribe now to Games and Feelings wherever you get your podcasts, and new episodes come out every other Friday. And finally, before we wrap up here, you're going to hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of these ads will be read by me, others of them won't. The ones that are not read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Kuwait, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Arabic. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The Newest Olympian. And we're back, and now we can start chapter 14, which has a great chapter title, We Meet the Sheep of Doom!
Doom!
Sheep of Doom! Sheep of Doom! Incredible chapter title. I was very excited. My guess here was he's going to fight some of Polyphemus's pets? I was wrong. But at least we do meet the Sheep of Doom. Potentially the most does what it says on the tin chapter title yet. Narrator Percy starts describing Polyphemus's island, and he notes that it doesn't have the normal look of a monster island. He goes on during this description to say, I mean, okay, it had a rope bridge across a chasm, which was not a good sign. You might as well put up a billboard that said, something evil lives here. But except for that, the place looked like a Caribbean postcard. It had green fields and tropical fruit trees and white beaches. Just a great description here, and I'm glad that he is confirming my initial suspicions, which were sparked by the cover of the book. But yeah, big old rope bridge over a chasm, come on. That's not just a flavor text thing.
There's a literary term for this.
Not a MacGuffin.
No, it's not a MacGuffin.
The opposite of a MacGuffin.
The opposite of a MacGuffin. It's Chekhov's rope bridge.
There it is.
There we go. I got there.
Is Chekhov's rope bridge, is that the thing where it's like if you show a gun in Act 1, you need to fire it in Act 3?
Yeah, it needs to go off, but yeah, Chekhov's.
Okay, yeah.
And there's probably more nuance to that, but
Right.
I didn't study theater in college. If you did text, we did can we do Lauren this time? I don't know.
It's still at Brandon Grugel on
actually,
Twitter.
you know what, Brandon every time.
Tweet at Brandon.
Yeah, tweet at Brandon Grugel.
Now, Annabeth breathes in the air and smells the fleece, and Percy can feel its power even though he can't see it yet. He asks Annabeth if the island will die after they take the fleece away, and she says it won't die, but it will fade and revert to what it once was. And Percy feels bad about that, but he tells himself, we have no choice. We have to save Camp Half-Blood, and Tyson would still be around if not for this quest, so dadgummit, we're gonna complete this quest. Percy then sees dozens of hippo-sized sheep grazing in a meadow, and just beyond them is a path up the hills which leads to an oak tree, which is the one that bears the fleece that Percy saw in his dreams. Percy voices, this feels too easy. There is no way that we can just walk up and take it, and Annabeth points out that there should be some sort of guardian, and I thought, potentially the Sheep of Doom? And yes, and we get introduced to the Sheep of Doom in the most horror movie way possible. A deer walks into the meadow. Butterflies flying around, sun rays, Vivaldi's Spring is playing. Bambi's mom walks into the meadow. We do this where I'm thinking something in my brain and then you voice it out loud because I was imagining Bambi's mom. Bambi's mom walks into the meadow and just gets clean eaten by the sheep in about half a second. Just all that's left is a pile of bones. Jeepers creepers. My goodness. Wow, wow, wow.
And it's like, I understand from Rick's point of view, like, he has to do this so we know that there's danger with these sheep. But man, how did that deer survive so long on the island?
Maybe it was just Bambi. I do appreciate that Rick does a great way of writing things that are terrifying, but in a way that is not gruesome or gory or would be yikesy for children to read. Because all he said was there was a pile of bones. He didn't talk about the deer getting ripped limb from limb. But when you are an adult like me and you can read between the lines very clearly and envision everything, you go, oh, I know exactly what Rick is describing. Annabeth and Percy stare at each other and they identify that these demon sheep are like piranhas, but with wool. And then Annabeth sees that there is another lifeboat. The other lifeboat from the CSS Birmingham is on the shore of the island, which is nice. Annabeth wants to sneak past the sheep wearing her hat, being invisible, but Percy convinces her that something could go wrong. And I thought, yes, but also this book would just be way too boring. Whether it's legit, because Percy's justification is that the monsters would smell her, may be valid. I don't know how good sheep noses are. Not a sheep expert here, not well versed in sheep, but yeah, it would just make the story really boring.
Yeah, I don't know anything about sheep.
Nothing. They have fluffy wool and they taste good.
Wooloo is like a cool Pokemon, but that's all I got for you, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know about that because I hard stopped at 151, baby. A purist.
It's a Pokemon that's a sheep.
Cool. Makes sense. Better than the Pokemon that is a bunch of keys on a key ring.
Dude, Klefki's fun.
No, Klefki's not.
You didn't even know Klefki's name till right now.
Because I don't want to give it respect. This book series has taught me you don't say the names of things you don't respect. And I do not respect the Pokemon. That's just a bunch of keys.
It's a fairy and steel type. It's kind of neat.
Steel type? Come on. We will be talking about this for 35 minutes. We don't have the time.
We got to stop. Yeah.
Don't even get me started on the balloon Pokemon. All of this aside, they want to save Grover first, and they want to see who made it ashore on the lifeboat because Percy secretly hopes, as I secretly hoped, and he doesn't voice this aloud, he secretly hopes that Tyson is still alive. Of course. First off, he has to be. But also, we need him.
I know.
So they moor the Queen Anne's Revenge on the backside of the island behind these giant cliffs to conceal it. And no, I didn't become a fancy boat boy in between the last episode and this episode of the newest Olympian. I was on a ferry with my friend Tim, and we passed a sign that said no mooring. And I asked him, what's mooring? And he said, it's parking a boat. So knowledge is power.
And now I know.
We all know what mooring is.
Hey!
mooring. Now, the cliffs that they have parked behind, I didn't realize that they were trying to climb these cliffs. I thought they were just trying to hide the boat. But Percy notes that these cliffs appear to be just barely climbable, similar to the lava wall at Camp Half-Blood. Glad that that lava wall has finally come in handy.
Full circle, baby.
Yes. Narrator Percy hopes that Polyphemus doesn't have any carnivorous mountain goats on the cliffs, though. Fantastic. So Percy and Annabeth row a lifeboat from the Queen Anne's Revenge to the edge of the rocks, and they begin to make their way up. Narrator Percy says, we only came close to dying 6 or 7 times, which I thought was pretty good.
Better than I would do.
Better than I would do, for sure. Rock climbing, I am okay at in terms of the physical capabilities, but in terms of my brain just being not a fan of it, I don't like it. Not a big bouldering guy if the wall is too high. Rock climbing, if I'm harnessed in, cool, but just not for me. I will never go real life rock climbing because there's this cool thing that you can do called hiking that does just involve walking and you get the same view. So works for me.
Oh yeah. I'm bad at climbing rocks. I like hiking.
It's very nice. I watched Free Solo, but I made sure to watch it on an airplane so that the very bad small screen would help me not be terrified the whole time I was watching it.
No, I couldn't even do it. I saw one of my roommates watching it during med school and I had to just walk out the room. I can't.
I cannot fathom it. Cannot fathom it. Percy's hand slipped one time Annabeth's foot slipped one time, and she found her footing using Percy's face. I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
Annabeth's foot to Percy's face.
Hey,
It's their thing.
Oh, their thing?
It's their thing. Some couples have a song. This is their trademark.
This is foot and face.
Foot and face. It's what makes them them. Despite these struggles, they finally make it to the top of the cliffs, and they are exhausted. They then hear Clarice below them, and it sounds like she's fighting a monster outside the entrance to the cave. But instead, it's Polyphemus, that's the monster at least, and he's there next to wedding dress-clad Grover, and Clarice, who is not actively fighting Polyphemus, but instead, she's tied upside down over a pot of boiling water, much like Miss Keene in the Him Diddle Riddle episode of the Powerpuff Girls, which is the best episode of the whole franchise. She's over this pot of boiling water. There's no sign of Tyson. It's not looking good. Polyphemus is deciding between eating Clarice now or waiting until the wedding feast. So he turns to Grover and asks for Grover's input. Grover says he's not really hungry right now, so they can wait. Good deflection by Grover. Grover, a great liar. A very good liar.
He's a natural.
So good at it. We absolutely love to see this from him.
Yeah, you'd love to have him on your improv team for sure.
Love to have him on the improv team. What did you decide that the name was? We figured it out after the fact.
We said it was the Laugh Bloods.
The Laugh Bloods. Thank you, Stephen Parra.
Yes.
God, yes. And you love to have him on the improv team. You love to have him on your quest team because you need some sort of mouth. You need the face. You need the person that can weasel your way out of situations. And Grover may not have been that strong in the first book at it, but he has clearly proven himself over the course of this one. He's doing a phenomenal job really developing the charisma, work your way out of situations, very good at rolling deception checks, persuasion checks.
Yeah. He's,
intimidation checks.
His charisma's attribute score is just super high.
He's doing very well.
Yeah.
Look at me. I know Dungeons and Dragons.
The worst part is I've played a lot of tabletop, but a lot of it wasn't D&D. It was other stuff. So I've actually played D&D once in my whole life, but most of my TikTok videos are still about D&D. I don't get it, man.
Do you make them or you just mean algorithmically?
No, the things that show up. I've never made a TikTok. I don't know if that's in my future, man. I don't think the listeners need to hear this. This is weird.
Now, Grover has set this up on a beautiful silver platter, and Clarice has decided to tarnish this platter and blow everything up, much like the previous chapter title, because she completely ruins the cover by being confused at Polyphemus calling Grover a bride as she goes, Grover? And then Polyphemus goes, what Grover? And Clarice says, the satyr. You were there when I read this morning.
Yeah.
I just pounded my fist on the kitchen table and said, oh, Clarice, no!
You had one job!
How, I know that you're not a wise girl like Annabeth, but you gotta realize what is going on here, right?
I think in some ways it shows that Clarice is always Clarice. She's a daughter of Ares, and she has a moment to put somebody down, and she takes it. How stupid are you? You don't realize it's a satyr, is sort of her perspective there, but that's...
Bullies are gonna bully, I guess.
Yeah.
Now Grover, dedicated to the cause, goes for the save, saying, oh, this boiling water must be getting to her head. Love it. He's not giving up.
So good.
Polyphemus then really tries to focus in on what's happening, and narrator Percy notes that his wedding attire is a crude kilt and shoulder wrap made up of baby blue tuxedos, maybe from past wedding people who've been on the island. Who's to say? But now we know he's Scottish, I guess, which is very fun. Clarice doubles down, though, really driving home, trying to make it crystal clear to Polyphemus that Grover is a satyr, which is just the worst thing that could happen. Come on, Clarice.
Yeah, I guess if her hands are free, she would have set up a whole PowerPoint.
Right. Exhibit A. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Here is how Grover is actually a satyr and not your bride.
You see his legs? They're goats.
Look at that. She pulls out a little laser pointer. Yeah. Over here. Yeah. Hooves. Here. Horns. But on that note, Polyphemus rips off some of Grover's wedding attire, which reveals his more satyry bits, and Polyphemus screams that Grover is not a lady Cyclops. Grover avoids a swipe from Polyphemus and pleads not to eat him raw because he has a good recipe. Grover always has a backup plan.
He's ready. He's just ready.
He's so good. He's become so solid at this. And above all of this, imagine not liking Grover. Can you imagine anyone not liking Grover?
No.
That's beyond me. He's perfect. And it actually works. Polyphemus is intrigued. Grover first says, you don't want to eat me raw because you can get E. coli and botulism, which is another word that I learned like 3 weeks ago when the guy from Bon Appetit got accused of promoting a botulism-esque tactic of food preservation, either on a YouTube video or an article. I don't know. I'm so out on Bon Appetit when they sent me a million emails in the span of 1 week.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, like, Grover probably wouldn't give you botulism. That's more involved with canning, and then you just, you brought it up on your own.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about. I'm really not sure, but I just know that this guy got into hot water for promoting something that was not a sound canning technique. Again, I know nothing about canning unless you're talking about opening cans or buying them at the grocery store. That's my can knowledge, baby. Starts and ends there. Grover then continues getting into the cooking method, and he says that he would be best prepared grilled over a slow fire and eaten with a side of mango chutney. And we've already talked a little bit earlier about the casting thing, but casting Grover as an Indian American actor makes so much sense now because he's basically just kind of talking about making a wonderful goat dish that you can have. I had goat with a side of mango chutney when I was in India. Absolutely delicious. What a great casting call here. That aside, though, I don't know. You and I were looking at the actor who they've cast as Grover, his Instagram. He seems like a perfect fit.
This kid's great. I love the first caption, just like, I am the goat.
GOAT to say greatest of all times, but also the goat. It's just... his introduction to all of us is a pun, and he looks so happy in the photos. When Uncle Rick reassures us that he cast these three because of their personality and not their looks, really shutting down all these racist jerks who are mad that Annabeth is black because, oh no, I would get on the whole thing about why this is bad. Read Uncle Rick's blog post. He has worded it better. Anything that I say would just be a worse regurgitation of what Rick said because he worded it so perfectly. It's 1,007 words of beauty.
Yep, and that's kind of similar earlier where I said I didn't have anything to add. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of feelings, but there's people that have said it better and they're, more directly in line to be protecting these kids. And so I think that's the place to do it. But I can't imagine anyone sitting there and seeing how proud and happy Rick was in that picture with the three kids and how just happy they look at being cast. And when I first saw that picture, I just felt so good and it just felt right. And I guess I just don't understand how anyone can sit there and see how invested and excited these kids are to be a part of this franchise and then would go in and try to attack the kid.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Yes, there were people that mass reported the actress's TikTok account. The actress Leah, who's going to be Annabeth, they mass reported her account so that it would get shut down. So now they have to make a new TikTok handle for her and all of this stuff. And it's just such a mess for something that's so silly and trivial. Again, Rick said so perfectly that if that's something that is going to make you mad, you didn't get the point of the books, which is that anybody can be a hero. And he's picking these people based on their personalities, which is the most important. Looks are secondary. And no matter what your gripe is, anyone can be blonde if that's what really is bothering you.
But I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
But as you had talked to me earlier today and in the past when this was announced and even further things like Miles Morales is so important to you in terms of representation for Spider-Man and stuff.
Okay, yeah, sure.
It's just this kind of thing is going to be so great for little kids out there to see someone in an awesome role and see themselves in that. Like, that goes so much further and does so much more good than, oh, they were described as probably being white in the book. Great, whatever, cool. You imagined her as white. There's different interpretations, and this will just do so much more good. I don't get how people can't see through that. I also don't get how people can care. Like, who cares if it looks different than how you imagined it? We all imagine things differently. Who cares?
Yeah, and I understand that many of you may have deep love for the Annabeth of your past and you relate to these characters, but there are a lot of other characters and the experiences you had with Annabeth when you read it as a kid, those aren't going away.
Right.
And you can still love and cherish that. But now we have opportunities for a lot of other young girls to see themselves in Annabeth in a new way. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yes, that's Very well said. It's opening people seeing themselves in Annabeth to a new group of people, and it's just another interpretation of Annabeth. You can still have book Annabeth in your brain. You can have movie Annabeth if you want. I have no idea how well her portrayal is.
We'll get there in a few years.
You'll have TV show Annabeth. It's similar to me with Spider-Man. There's all different Spiders, man, whether you've got Peter Parker iterations or Miles Morales or any of the other Spider-Man, Gwen even. Like, there's so many different things, and in the movies, Spider-Man is different than the video games and the books, and there's no wrong way to do it. There's just different ways to do it, and Uncle Rick says he's picking the people that he trusts, and I would trust trusted source Rick Riordan,
the author of the series.
You know, the guy who literally wrote the book on Percy Jackson. Absolutely ridiculous. Cannot recommend enough to read Uncle Rick's blog post about it. It's such a shame that it came to him having to write this I'm frustrated and disappointed blog post. Hopefully it puts people in their place. I am fully confident that this casting choice is going to be perfect, and I really can't wait to see them in action. It's going to be so good.
It's going to be great.
Now, Polyphemus asks Clarice if she is a satyr. Clarice gets very upset, and she angrily replies that she is a girl and the daughter of Ares. She then demands to be untied so that she can rip Polyphemus's arms off, and Polyphemus repeats, "Rip my arms off." I like that he kind of contemplates all of the insults thrown at him. He's a really fun villain.
Yeah, he's just like, because I think he realizes how absurd it is. It's like, you can't even get out of...
Yeah, he's just a beautifully simple villain.
Yeah.
It's really great.
It is.
Polyphemus then picks up Grover and says he has to graze sheep and that the wedding is postponed until tonight with satyr as the main course. And Grover is confused by Polyphemus still planning to have a wedding and asks him who the bride is. And then he looks to Clarice, which does not make her very happy. He grabs Clarice as well, and he tosses both her and Grover deep into the cave. He walks out with a few goats and sheep, naming some of them. These names include Beltbuster, Tammany, and Lockhart. Uncle Rick having a blast here. And then he closes the cave with a boulder and mutters to himself, "Mangoes. What are mangoes?" Fantastic. What a perfect note to end this episode of The Newest Olympian on. We'll finish up this chapter and see how much of the next we can get to in the next one. But Stephen, thank you so much for joining, especially on such short notice, a couple hours at best.
You know, I love doing this with you, man. Like I've told you, I'll come as often as you want, as often as you need me. And so I'm just happy to come back and do this again. And I think it was really nice that we had the opportunity to talk about something that's also just important going on in the fandom.
Yeah.
And I think it was just nice to be able to contribute my voice to that particular discussion.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. It really did work out in that you like these chapters, but also what happened today with Uncle Rick having to post that. Again, this is May 10th as we record it. It's something that I know you're really passionate about, and we have talked about a lot just as friends. So for you to be able to voice some stuff, I think is really good, and it gives us a nice segue to talk about it. So yeah. I'm glad it worked out. I will eventually maybe talk to people involved in the production of the show. Maybe this will come up. Like, that would be something really cool to revisit, but I'm glad that it seems like overwhelmingly the response is positive. I hope that any sort of negative feelings towards the casting is the minority. Maybe it's just because TNO listeners are all level-headed, but I saw one kind of weird comment about the casting among hundreds of people being super stoked. So I'm at least glad knowing that listeners of The Newest Olympian have their heads on right, or at least the ones that don't have not reached out to me. But yeah, if you're listening and you're not happy with the casting just because people of color are these roles that you maybe envisioned as white people, stop listening to the podcast, please. I do not want you here. Anyway, Stephen, thank you for joining.
Yeah.
If people want to find you doing stuff, where can they find you?
You can find me on Mike's other podcast, mostly. Check me out on Meddling Adults. I've got quite a few Newest Olympians episodes at this point. It's a pretty good podcast.
I think it's great. You're really going to love it if you like today's episode.
Yeah, and from time to time I show up on this show called Render Me This. It's just sort of like a cartoon tourism. Look at shows you saw as a kid and decide if you want to live there. Oh, I forgot to mention at the top of the episode, anything I've said during this episode is my opinion alone. Doesn't reflect the opinions of any medical school or medical institution that exists. That's really it. Thanks for listening, y'all. And, you know, I read the comments and stuff y'all post on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, and it's just really nice to see that y'all enjoy that I come sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's really nice. I'm glad that you have reached the status where Kelly and Johnny were, certainly with Potterless and also with the Noose Olympian, of people even just seeing the post going, oh, it's another Steven episode? Yes, I love when Steven's on. That makes me really happy because I know you're very good. I know people will love you. And sometimes it can feel a bit like nepotism of, oh, here's one of my best friends in the whole world on the show. But no, I know Steven will be very good. It's not just because you know me. You've earned your spot here. And I'm glad that people love you on the show because I love you and on the show as well. And it's all good stuff. So thank you so much for joining, listeners. Thanks for listening. And until we see what's going to happen with this potential wedding, I'll see you later. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you love the show, you cannot get enough of the show, you need some more, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon, and you can get access to more bonus episodes, monthly live streams, the Discord, so much fun stuff, all at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. And speaking of the Patreon, I want to give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Lotta Bartova, Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Emma Cooey, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Houskopchova, Veronica Bartova, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Tough Bayfong, Moo Productions, Don't Call Me Nymphadora, Olivia Y, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Minka Dreesen, Can't-I Seaweed Brain, Matt Barger, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Getting Stoned with Smelly Gabe, Heather McMillan, Casey Canales, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Bridget Lowry, Josh Sayer, Percy Blue, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Shannon Ivanez Aguilar, Wise Girl, Alpacas Are Hope, Milo TZ, Roxas 1912, Rafaela, Ashton Gabrielson, Cara Marin, Colby, Marco Redhouse, Falcon, Joey James, Christopher William Boucher, Justin Lux, Caden Max, Sam Ruby, Carly Allen, Riley Kiedis, Mary Kelly, Audra McKenzie, Mrs. O'Leary, Marina Foose, Aaron Wood, Tyler Hendricks, and Molly Snyder. Now, if you want to support the show, but in a non-monetary way, first you could follow us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We also have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewest-olympian. And then you could talk about us on social media. That really helps. Word of mouth is really huge. Or you could leave a rating and review on whatever podcast app you're using. So Apple Podcasts or Spotify let you rate. If you want to rate us, leave a nice review. That's really nice. But honestly, the biggest thing, word of mouth. If you think of someone that would love the show, reach out to them directly and say, hey, there's this podcast, there's this guy, he's reading the Percy Jackson books for the very first time. I think you're going to like it. Here's a link to it. That is huge. All of these things help, and I'm appreciative to all of you who have done it or who will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you listened to this episode, and I hope you tuned into our next episode, which is coming out on June 6th. Reminder that we are taking Memorial Day weekend off so that I can breathe and relax and go to 2 weddings on the same weekend. But we'll be back on June 6th with an episode that finishes up Chapter 14 and covers all of Chapter 15 with a new guest, Joel Rochester. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. Because I am back in the studio and because I am here to stay forever as ASMR Mike, I thought it'd be good to do another edition of ASMR Mike, where I do true ASMR of making noises and stuff. I've never watched ASMR, but I think that's what people do. So I'm just going to make a bunch of noises and such. So here's me rubbing a soundproofing wall thing in the studio. Here's me tapping my fingers on the top of it. Here's me taking a slurp of water from my water bottle. It has a straw, so I don't know if you could hear that. Here's me kind of hitting it with my ring. And then I'm going to wobble a rubber coaster. I don't know if any of those are going to get picked up because I do use audio cleanup software that is supposed to remove all noises. So if you didn't hear anything there or it sounded all funky, you can thank my audio cleanup software for doing a good job. Anyway, thanks for listening.